Hello, welcome back, folks. And let us continue from where we had left off last time. We saw verse 16, where we saw that the various people from the Pandava side were blowing their conch shells. And I realized that this font was a bit small, so today I have enlarged it, increased it, so it's easier for you to read. I'm going to recite a couple of shlokas that we saw last time, just to set the context of the shlok 17 with which we are going to start today. And I want to just keep a. So we saw that Sri Krishna who was driving Arjuna's chariot, and then he blew his conch shell, which is Panchajanyam. So Panchajanyam Hrishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Poundram Dadmau Mahashankam Bhima Karma Vrugodaraha. Verse 15 that we saw that Sri Krishna, Arjun and Bhima blew their conch shells. Verse 16, we saw the rest of the Pandavas. Ananta Vijayam Raja Kunti Putro Yudhishthiraha. Yudhishthir blew his conch shell, Ananta Vijay. Nakula Sahadevascha Sughosha Manipushpakau. Nakul and Sahadev, they blew their conch shell. So you can see the tempo building up from the Pandava side in response to what Bhishmacharya started off from the Kaurava side. And now we will see verse 17. Kashascha Parameshwasaha Shikhandi cha Maharatha Drishtatyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parajitaha. And we had gone through this symbolism where we identified a lot of these characters and we tried to place them in the right perspective from or the right context in whatever is happening in the mind. All of you are aware that there are various perspectives of looking at this battle. There is one that is the very obvious thing, that a real battle is going on the battlefield. And the one that we are more interested in is looking at what is happening inside the mind. And we had taken a very simple scenario where there was an argument going on between two people, and there was frustration because this other person is not ready to listen to what you are saying. And because of that, all these, we are taking a snapshot in time of what this mind is composed of. And for a while, the frustration part of the mind is building up, and it is occupying more of the mind than the rational part of it, the logical part of it. So now the logical part of it, the rational part, is trying to come up with some arguments here that make sense, that support the positive side of the mind. So these are the Pandava side, basically, the ones on the side of Dharma. Dharma is a tricky word. I mentioned to you earlier as well that it takes on different meanings depending on the context. And something that is Dharma may turn out that the same person doing the same thing under a different circumstance at a different time would turn out to be adharma. So we are going to see some examples of that. So here there are other forces lined up who are supporting us to fight, or to at least understand where we stand in this battle, and then give us some support here. Kashas, Kashiraj. Kashas is Kashascha means the king of Kashi. Kashascha Parameshwasaha. Parameshwasa is another like a lot of other Sanskrit words. This is a combination of two words. It means a great archer, Parama Isha. It's not in the sense of Parameshwara, but this is more like somebody who is highly skilled in working with his bow and arrow. So he's you can call him a great general in colloquial parlance. So Kashascha Parameshwasa, Shikhandi cha Maharatha. Shikhandi, if you remember last time that Bhishmacharya had brought the three princesses of Kashi to Hastinapur, and one of them was Amba, and the whole story goes on that she felt insulted, she died, she took birth after birth. She was seeking vengeance, and she was born in the person of this Shikhandi. We may not see much of the significance of that in the Bhagwad Gita, but if time permits, I will, after the Bhagwad Gita, or sometime in the middle, depends on the context, I could explain why Shikhandi is such an important character. She is the one who's going to confront Bhishmacharya. Anyhow, Kashascha Parameshwasaha Shikhandi cha Maharatha Drishtatyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parachitaha Drupado Draupadi. So there was a glitch in this timer that I used to time this. That's why I was a little bit distracted. So let me get back to here. Kashascha Parameshwasa Shikhandi cha Maharatha Drishtatyumno Viratascha Satyakischa Parajita. Drishtatyumna we saw was the child that was born, that came out of this yajna, whose sole intent in life was to see how he could eliminate, vanquish Dronacharya. And we saw that Dronacharya represents the kind of worldly knowledge which has got this son Ashwatthama, which is endless. Basically, it means it's endless. So he is there in the battle. Drishtatyumna, this is Drishtatyumna. Viratascha, we saw who Virat was. Satyaki, so there'll be a whole list of things. We have not looked at each and every character, and there's no need either, just the main ones. We want to get the gist of the whole thing. Satyakischa Parajita. Aparajita is one who has never been vanquished. So these are the forces that are standing from the Pandava side. Then another list of forces that are on the side of Dharma, if you will. Drupado Draupadeyascha Sarvasha Prithivipate Saubhadrascha Mahabahu Shankam Dadmuk Pruthak Pruthaka. So Drupada and Draupadeyascha. So in Sanskrit, when you are referring to the son of a particular female, you would say Kaunteya would be the Pandava. So Draupadeya is the son of Draupadi's, and Saubhadra will be the son of Subhadra. So that is what is being said here, that Drupada is obviously Drupada here. Drupada, Draupadeyascha Sarvasha Prithivipate. Prithivipate is actually Dhritarashtra is being addressed here, that O king, this there is Drupada and sons of Draupadi that are there. They are participating in this battlefield. And here Saubhadra, just like Draupadi, there is Saubhadra. Saubhadrascha Mahabahu. His Mahabahu he is very strong. He has got strong arms. Just like Draupadi are the sons of Draupadi, Saubhadra is the son of Subhadra, and the son of Subhadra is Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu played a key role, vital role in this 18 days of battle. And he happened to actually get killed in the battle. And it was one of the turning points in the battle. Again, it's something that comes after the Bhagwad Gita. And then all of these heroes, these warriors, generals, strong people on the side, they blew their conch shells. Each of them had their own, and then they blew their conch shells. Shankam, Dadmuk, Pruthak, Pruthaka. Pruthak, Pruthaka is separately. Each of them had their own conch shells. So now, if you can imagine that in the battlefield, the Kauravas had their say, and now the Pandavas, one by one, they are. It's probably something that happened at the same time concurrently, but because this is being described to us, the names are obviously being said one after another. So Saghosho Dharta Rashtranam Hridayani Vyadarayata. Saghosho Dharta Rashtranam Hridayani Vyadarayata. Nabhascha Prithivim Chaiva Tumulobhyanunadayan. So what it's saying here is that the sound made by this Pandava army, all the generals and all that sent fear in the heart of the, just like we have Draupadi and we have got Saubhadra, this is Dhartarashtra, so the Kaurava army. The display of strength that was demonstrated by the Pandavas, they instilled fear in the heart of the sons of Dhritarashtra, and they the earth shook by the sound that is made. I don't know. I mean, if you have been to one of these processions where they actually beat these big drums, you can actually feel the ground shaking. There's a lot of energy there. So I suppose that's something that must have been going on in this battlefield. So the Kauravas, they made their presence felt, and then the Pandavas made such a lot of sound that it actually it's scared, if I can use that word here, the Kaurava army. So Saghosha is basically the sound made, the vibrations made by these different instruments. Saghosho Dharta Rashtranam Hridayani Vyadarayata. So Vyadarayata is fear. Nabhascha Prithivim Chaiva Tumulo Janunadayan. So here, if we are going to, let me just take a quick look at the next verse that is there. Okay. There's something else that I wanted to refer here. Just give me 1 second. This, yeah, this timer is acting funny today. So I might be off by a little bit today because of the timing. I don't think it matters, but I'm just keeping track of time here. So we were following a particular example when we went through all this. And so this battle, we had said, is something that is taking place in our mind. So we have got these forces in our mind that are asking us to do things that are, we know, incorrect. And then there are those forces that are helping us to address this situation. I was a little bit tempted to use the word salvage, but it will be extreme in this case, because it's not like the situation has gone out of hand. We are in a situation and we need to figure out how to get out of it. So you are having this argument with the person, whatever person, and so you are somewhat frustrated, and you are supposed to do some important thing. You have to go to the office and do some work, and you are maybe you get into an argument with your spouse, and you're supposed to pick up your child from the school or someplace at some time, and she's not able to go, so you have to go, and you you have some other work to do. It's something you can imagine such a situation, but it this kind of situation, it builds stress up in your mind, and now you are being given a task to do at your work. You have to go through some numbers, you have to check them, you have to add them up, something that you would have generally done in 5 minutes. Now your mind is not, you're thinking of something else, it's focused somewhere else. So why is that? So let me switch to this slide that I wanted to walk you through. So our mind is in a state of flux all the time. That's what uh, the definition of mind actually is subjective, it's contextual, so depending on what you're talking about and who you're talking to. In this case, we are talking about the influx and outflux of thoughts that are there. That's kind of the aggregate of that is what we are calling the mind, and it is in flux. It is constantly changing all the time. So now this the mind, it at a moment in time, it is made up of certain um, things that are at that moment prominent or dominating it. And when I am at this point where this argument that I'm having with this person that is driving me into desperation, if I take a snapshot of the mind at that time, what does it? This is just a sample thing, but you can understand where the Mahabharata is coming from. So if you look at this composition at some point in time, as you are having this argument, more than 50% is being occupied by Duryodhan. And Duryodhan is this, uh, it's the desire is a very loose word to represent some of the things that the mind is, you're not supposed to do, and the mind is forcing you to do it. It is habit, it is sometimes other things that are forcing you, whatever, all that put together, undesirable things. That is Duryodhana. So Duryodhana is taking up more than 50% of the mind in this case. And Arjun, which is our rationalistic thinking power, is taking up some amount, and Bhima and Yudhishthir and all others. Now, you saw the number of people that are listed in this first chapter, and if I were to represent them in different slices here, it would be either like there's too much of information here and we may not be able to read each and every one of them. And this, if suppose I was to do it, or we were to do it, and let's even suppose we have to do it in a very precise way, this chart would be valid for one fraction of a second. The next fraction, this picture changes. Something else becomes dominant, and somebody else now is in charge of this whole situation. So the thing is, if you average it out over an hour or 2 hours over the whole day, and then you see what is happening, and what you want is you want to have a tranquil mind. But what you will notice is something like this, that you will find most of the time Duryodhana is the guy who has been actually ruling this mind of ours, rather than there being Arjun and Bhima. They should have been taking on more of this space. Bhishma is a and even Drona. Drona, I think we can explain that in a better way. Bhishma is kind of a gray area here. And what is not shown here is this whole thing is on the canvas, this white canvas that is there, that we have seen before, is Sri Krishna. That is our Sakshi Chaitanya, in whose presence all this is happening. So whether 60% of this is taken up by Duryodhan or 60% is taken by Arjuna, the canvas continues to be there. It continues to be the same. And I mentioned this last time, that if we take a pie chart of the mind and all that, I was not sure if everybody might be able to picture what I was saying at that time when I say, take a pie chart like this. So that's why I put this together. So this is what is happening there, that in this battlefield, which is our argument that is going on, the different forces are coming up, and some are against us, some are with us, and then they are this pie chart of the mind is getting painted, and gradually the tempo builds up, momentum builds up, it reaches a crescendo, and when it reaches that point, then at that point you come to know if your positive side of thing is exiguous or not, whether you have enough kind of energy to push the mind into the positive side of things. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. Athau vyavasthitan drishtva dhartarashtraन् kapidhvajah pravrutte shastra sampate dhanurudyamya pandavaha ऋषिकेशं तदा वाक्यम् idamaha mahipate. So then what it's saying is that Athav vyavasthitan drishtva dhartarashtran kapidhvaja. Kapidhvaja is kind of a semi-technical word here. So there's some story around this. Basically, Dhwaja is a flag and Kapi is monkey. So he who has a chariot which has got this flag on which there is a monkey. It means Arjun. That's what it means. Kapidhwaja is actually Hanuman, so he accompanied Arjun on the battlefield. He wanted to be a part of that. So that's what we don't want to put it. But Kapidhwaja is Arjun. So he's saying, Atha vyavasthitan drishtvan dharta rashtran kapidhvaja. We paraphrase this, we say it means that Arjun, then he saw all this. Arjun, he saw the Dharta Rashtra, the children of Dhritarashtra, they were standing in front of him, arrayed for battle. Pravrutte shastra sampate dhanurudyamya pandavaha. So they are armed to their teeth and they are ready to fight the battle. That's what he saw. We have been saying all this and it's kind of being repeated here, but this time it's kind of Arjun looking at it. All this time Sanjay and Duryodhan, they were talking about it. Now Arjun, he looks at this. And if you, well, let me just finish this verse and then I'll tell you why this is not so easy, what is being said here. Rishikesham tada vakyam idamaha mahipate. So upon seeing this army, then Arjun, he spoke these words to Rishikesha. The words will follow, but it's saying that this is what this sloka is saying, that upon seeing this army across him, Arjuna, he said these things to Shri Krishna. So what is happening here is, if you consider this situation that we are talking about, that you are frustrated and you're mad with somebody because whatever, some reason, if somebody were to tell you at that point, they say that take some deep breaths, So you basically stand outside of yourself and look at what is happening there. That's what they're asking. Look at the situation. You might do something rash and stupid in the, in the whole situation that you are in. You might do something wrong here. You might panic. was resisting to use the word panic because I want to use that word later on. But in the frenzy of things, you might do something wrong. So they'll say, no, take a deep breath, step outside of yourself and see what is happening. So that is what is being said here, that Arjun, he takes a step back and now he's looking, who are these forces that are there with whom I have got to fight? And he kind of wants to scrutinize them more clearly. So if we go to the next verse, Arjuna Uvacha. Now this is one interesting thing you may have noticed here, that this shloka, it finishes here and then the other shloka starts, and then in the middle of this next shloka is when actually Arjun speaks. It's kind of odd, but that's how the poetry is. Arjuna Uvacha, so it's right in the smack in the middle of a verse that Arjun speaks. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapayamechyuta. Achyuta is Sri Krishna. Many times when reading Sanskrit, you might find that when you go from right to left, it kind of unfolds somewhat better and it's easier to follow. There is one other thing that I have noticed is sometimes I assume that at least some Sanskrit, the listeners might be aware of some Sanskrit or some of the Vedantic things, but I realize that's a wrong assumption. So I might go a little bit deeper into some of the things that I will be talking about. Anyhow, so Arjuna Vacha Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. Sena is the battlefield or the battle. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. It is, as I have been telling you, there is this sandhi, so they bunch of words that have been gotten together and they kind of disappear from, it's not actually spelled out, but it's pronounced that way. That is why we are paraphrasing. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. So in the midst of these two armies, Ubhayor is both. Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapaya Mechyutam. Sri Krishna, Arjuna is asking Sri Krishna, hey Krishna, please take this chariot in the middle of these two armies. It will come later on. He says, I want to see them more properly. I want to scrutinize it. But this was specifically saying, Arjuna Uvacha Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Sthapayame Achyuta. Achyuta, as I said, is Sri Krishna. Take our chariot and take it into the middle of the battlefield. Now, this is a very strange request. How can you, at the start of a battle, expect somebody to do this and then expect nothing to happen here? But on the one hand, you can have some kind of explanation about physically what is happening in the battlefield. But on the other hand, in this scenario where the battle is happening in the mind, what we are taking is we are taking this step back. That is what Arjuna is saying. I want to inspect what all this is happening here. Okay. Yavadetan niriksheham yodhukaman avasthitan kairmaya saha yodhavyam asmindranu samudyame. So Arjuna is telling Krishna, take my chariot into this in the middle of these two armies so that I can observe more clearly who are these people who are ready to fight with me. Yavadetan niriksheham. Niriksham is to observe. Yodhukaman avasthitan. Yodhukaman avasthitan is people who are desirous of fighting with me. Those people. Kairmaya saha yodhavyam. Rana asmin rana samudyame. Asmin is in this battle, these people who are desirous of fighting with me so that I can see them more clearly, take my chariot in the middle of this battlefield. Yotsyamanaanaveksheham ya etetra samagataah dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe yuddhe priyachikirshavaha. And he goes on to say, I would like to see these people who are desirous of fighting with me. And then he says, those who are durbuddhe is, if you were to kind of translate it as what has been translated here, this is, they have said evil-minded here, which is kind of what is you might expect. So from a strictly Sanskrit point of view, you might say it like that, but it depends on the context on which you are looking at it. So these like people who you might say have not thought through things completely, they're not necessarily evil, but they are not stupid either, but not thinking, unreasonable people who are fighting with me, who are somehow blind with some kind of raging emotions, those people. So I would like to see these people, and we know some of them. We know it is Duryodhan, Dushasan, the rest of the Kauravas, and we went over the list of people that is there. So they are who are right in front of me, who are ready to pick up this battle with me. And one might question that how would you do that in a battlefield? They are not going to be sitting there quietly when you are going to do all kinds of these. This is a very common question that gets asked, and there are different kinds of answers to that. But our perspective of this is that, and this is a very simple case that we are taking, where we are having this frustrating argument, and that is why we are in this situation. We are standing back and we are wanting to study, not just observe this time. We want to study who these forces are, and then we can take appropriate action against them. Sanjaya Uvacha. Sanjaya Uvacha is said, like if you look at last verse, it said, well, maybe a verse before. There was Arjuna Uvacha. So this is Sanjaya. This is Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna was speaking these verses, and then now Sanjay is going to start speaking here in this case. Sanjaya Uvacha. Eva Mukto Hrishikesha Gudakeshena Bharata Senayorvayor Madhye Sthapayitva Rathottamam. So all this time, there was just this desire by Arjuna. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna that please take my chariot in the middle of the battlefield. And now Sri Krishna actually did that. He took the chariot and he rode it in the middle of the battlefield. So Sanjay is saying that. So here, Eva Mukto Rishikesha Gudakeshena Bharata. So Rishikesha is Sri Krishna. Gudakesha is Arjun. Sena or Ubhaya or Madhya, we saw this word before. Sena and Ubhaya, it's in the middle of the battlefield. Sthapayitva, he's rested. His Sthapayitva, he took his the chariot. Rathottamam, the good chariot, the mighty chariot that they were riding in. He took and placed it, put it in the, stopped it in the middle of the battlefield there, wherever Arjuna was asking him to do it. Rishika Esha, this is how actually it is. Rishikesha is Rishika Isha, is the ruler of the senses. Rishika senses. Isha is the ruler, owner of the senses. So you got like Umesh, Uma, Isha, or so this is like the the husband of Uma, there is Umesha. And Gudakesha is similar. Here Gudaka is sleep. So sleep, he who has conquered sleep, or it literally, I guess you might say who doesn't sleep, that doesn't make sense. But he who has conquered sleep. But here sleep means what? That you basically are not ignorant, you are not, you are aware, you are not unaware of things around you, that things that make are reasonable and important to you. You are not unaware of this. For instance, if somebody comes and asks you to smoke a cigarette or some kind of, I don't know how they do this drugs thing, maybe it's a pill or something, but somebody comes and gives you that, then you are aware of its negative effects and you should desist from him. So it's very, very practical example of what it could mean. So Gudakesha is that person who is aware of what is going to aid him in his dharmic battle, in his battle. This is all a fight for dharma. And dharma is a word that is fluid, so it's a little bit complicated. We'll see what it means here. So what is what's happening now here is that first there was this desire, and now Krishna is actually taking this chariot in the middle of this battlefield. And there's one more aspect of the state of mind that I want to explain, and I don't know if we'll have enough time for that, because this clock is well, I think I have got another 7 or 8 minutes. Bhishma Drona Pramukatah Sarveshancha Mahikshita Uvacha Partha Pashaitam Samavetan Kuruniti. So Bhishma Drona Pramukatah, we all saw the different players, generals, warriors from the Kaurava side, Pandava side. So this was being explained to us by, while we were kind of, we were audience on this when Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra that Bhishma is there, Drona is there, and so on and so on. But now what is happening is Arjun is looking at it. So this time, although it's the same thing, the person who is observing this is different. So that is why this comes back again, that Bhishma Drona Pramukataha. Bhishma and Drona, they're standing in front of him. Sarve Shancha Mahikshitam. And then Mahikshitam is other warriors on the Kaurava side. There, Arjuna is watching them. Uvacha Partha Pashaitam Samavetan Kuruniti. So the various members of the Kaurava army. Now, if you think about this example, about this frustrating thing that we are talking about, now you are being asked to do a task. All this is happening, right? You are already not in control of the situation. You tried to, you are not in a good place because of this heated debate that you are in. On top of that, somebody is asking you to do something very skilled, and you want to give 100% of your mind to this task that they have asked you to do. But how do you do that? Because your mind is wandering off on these other things. You the thing that I was telling you before is something happened and your kid, you need to pick him up from school, and that in 10 minutes you need to go and do that. And the boss comes and tells you, work out these numbers. This is going to take an hour, 2 hour kind of thing. And so you're looking at these numbers. What do? You need to go and do this other thing. So there are like two high priority items that you have. And this is a very simplified situation where you need to make a decision. And this is kind of part of the dharma that we said, what is your dharma in this case? Do you go and maybe there's no negative connotation here because it's a simple case of going and picking up your kid from school. Maybe a better example would be, and again, even in this example, the answer is obvious, but you, somebody has been hurt and you want to drive him to the hospital or something, to the doctors. You put him in the car and you're rushing him and the light turns from green to red. So are you going to now honor, you going to follow this rule, the dharma of the traffic lights, or you're going to break it because you have got a higher purpose that is going to be served by breaking this light? But this is still a simple example. We'll get into the more complicated and real crux of what is being said here. But I think we have said enough that we know that we are talking about what's happening in the mind. So Arjun here is looking at these forces here, and then let me see. I think I might be able to squeeze at least another verse in for today. Tatra pashyat sthitan parthah pitrunatha pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratran putran pautran sakins tatha. And so this is basically a listing of all these things that Arjuna is seeing in front of him. And if you just take it just as is, that's what it is. It is a listing, but apply it to this scenario of the mind, and then you will at least appreciate a little bit more that you are asked to do something, and then there is this 15 other things that are bothering you, pulling you back. You have to pay some bill. Today is the last day. It's 5 o'clock is when the last, it's at 4:30, 5 o'clock is the last day to pay the bill, and now you've got some work that you have got to do. So all these worries that you have one by one, these are big and small worries that are being enlisted here. There are some of them in big form, some of them in small form, some of them stretched out, spread over time. If you don't take action against something right now, you are going to have consequences. You're going to face the consequences of that, not in 1 hour, but maybe a month down the line. So all these that are being said here, they are different worries that we have. Tatra pashyat sthitan parthah pitrunata pitamahan. Pitrunata pitamaha is we know is basically his fathers in the sense his uncles, and then grandfathers from that side of it, other relatives. Acharya is teachers. Acharyan, Matulan are his uncles. Bhratran, cousins. Putran, sons, cousin sons. Pautran, grandsons. Sakhins tata, friends. So all list of all the things that he is able to see, which we translate to is different kinds of worries that he has in his mind. Let me do a time check again. I think we might be very close to okay, we might be very close to end of the time here. Let me see if I can do this one. Shvashuran Sukhrudaschaiva Senayorubhayorapi Tan samikshasa kaunteyaha sarvan bandhonavasthitan kripaya paraya vishta vishidanidam abravin. This forms the start of an interesting phase in this life cycle of this battle. If the mind thing that we are talking about, it started when you started having this argument with this person. So if you draw a graph of what happens, the argument is getting heated up. So it starts going up and up and up. And then you are at this point where you are getting frustrated, you are feeling helpless. So this is, we are gradually approaching that point where the description of that is getting more and more detailed. Shvashuran Suhrudaschaiva Shvashuran Suhrudaschaiva Senayoruvayorapi. So father-in-laws, friends, they are all same thing is continuing that list. Tan samiksha kaunteya, having seen that, samiksha is to see. Sarvan bandhonavasthitan, sarvan bandhonavasthitan. Sarvan is all the other cousins, brothers that I have. He sees all that. This last line is where things start to become interesting. Kripaya paraya vishta, vishedan nidam abravid. Kripaya is a word that means compassion. And we definitely are going to look at this line in our next session, because this is going to need a lot of discussion. So Kripaya Paraya Vishta, he is overcome by compassion. Compassion is a word that is being used here if you want to translate it as is, but really he's getting stressed out. In the sense, if we take this situation of the mind, we are getting stressed out here. Vishedan nidam abravid. He spoke, Arjuna spoke words lamenting. He is under such serious stress and tension here because of the situation he finds himself in. Helpless. He wants to do something, he cannot do. So many things pulling at him. He wants to go in one direction. He knows that is what dharma is. He knows what adharma is and cannot do that, and all these things pulling back, and the momentum builds up till it reaches a crescendo and things break down. That is what is the beginning of this shloka here is. So thanks for tuning in and listening, folks. We are going to start on a very interesting description of our mind when we meet the next time. Till then, have a nice week, and we'll talk later. Thank you. Bye.